Cabinet approves the abolition of the executive presidency and changing of the electoral system.
Minister Mangala Samaravira says executive presidency will only be abolished at the end of the current presidential term.
Paris under attack once again. 2 killed in raids.
Relief granted to 10 essential goods through the budget.
Head of the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board, who said that he would expose a list of politicians involved in drugs, loses his position.
It is Wednesday, the 18th of November 2015. Hello and welcome. This is Primetime News on Newsfirst, coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo on MTV and Shakti TV. Good evening and hello, Mahina.
Good evening, Shine, and a very good evening to all of you watching us. We have plenty of stories coming up over this half hour of Primetime News. We start off with a look at your top story for today. In your top story today, President Maithripala Sirisena presented a special cabinet paper at today's cabinet meeting regarding the abolition of the executive presidency and the introduction of a new electoral system. Cabinet later granted its approval for the president's proposals.
Cabinet convened at the Presidential Secretariat and the meeting was presided over by President Maithripala Sirisena. The President presented the special cabinet papers aimed at fulfilling the pledge made during the presidential election to abolish the executive presidency and vest the powers with the Parliament and amend the proportional electoral system to introduce a more democratic electoral system. A subcommittee headed by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is to be appointed to finalize the process, and a report by the Cabinet subcommittee will be presented within the next 2 weeks to the Cabinet. The President's media division said that subsequent to that, legislative draftsmen will draft the required amendments to the Constitution.
Today, President Maithripala Sirisena presented a historic proposal to change the powers of the executive presidency and make amendments to the electoral system. The President presented the cabinet paper aimed at fulfilling the pledge made to the people at the presidential election. On Friday, the budget will be presented. Tomorrow, the cabinet will discuss the budget. At that meeting, cabinet will take decisions on the budget.
Journalists raised questions about the cabinet meeting at the media briefing that was convened by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
No, it was reported in the newspapers and you create the stories. There was no talk about an incident on Harin Fernando. Nothing of such nature was spoken and we are not aware of it.
A son of a certain minister had crept into my ministry yesterday and had tried to go through my things. I intend on speaking on this matter extensively in cabinet tomorrow. Sons of ministers cannot creep into ministries and do politics. People cannot just walk into my ministry as they please to find facts on my ministry.
Minister Mangala Samaravira expressed the following views at a media briefing held at the United National Party headquarters, Sirikota, this evening.
You may remember how he tried to abolish all the executive powers through the 19th Amendment, as could be done without a public referendum. For certain clauses, the Supreme Court determined that not only must there be a 2/3 majority, there should also be a referendum. For the first time in history, a president is proposing to curtail his own powers. After the completion of President Maithripala Sirisena's tenure from the next presidency, the executive presidency will be abolished once and for all from this country.
Welcome back to the news. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa celebrates his 70th birthday today.
The former president attended several religious events to mark his birthday.
A special alms giving was held at the Abhayaramya in Narayanpeta this morning. The former president then arrived at the Mayurapati Kovil in Vellavatta and engaged in religious observances. This evening, a special puja took place opposite the Jayashree Mahabodhiya in Anuradhapura to mark the birthday of Mahinda Rajapaksa.
Dr. Nilanga Samarasinghe has been removed from his position as chairman of the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board.
When Newsfirst made inquiries from Dr. Nilanga Samarasinghe in this regard, he said that the board received a letter this evening bearing the signature of the Secretary to the Ministry of Law and Order, Jagat P. Vijayveera. Dr. Samarasinghe stated that Professor Ravindra Fernando has been appointed as chairman to the board. Dr. Nilanga Samarasinghe came into the spotlight following a statement that he made that he possesses a list of politicians involved in the drug trade. The matter was raised on the Pathigada program on our sister channel Sirasa TV this morning when Dr. Nilanga Samarasinghe appeared as a guest on the show. Why is there such a delay in exposing this list? Is it because you have obtained money from a drug dealer or was it because of fear? Give me a straight answer.
The day I breathe my last, it will be my children and my wife who will grieve my death, and the people may speak about it for a week or two. But I will take the necessary steps in the future to ensure the safety of my family, because we are followers of Venerable Sobhita Thero.
Give me a specific date as to when you will expose this list.
The moment I complete the arrangements for the security of my family. It should not take many months.
You are a responsible official of the state.
It is likely that I may have been removed from my position by the time I get to work today. And once I'm removed, so will my security. Once that happens, I will have to seek protection from embassies. If I get a positive response from those embassies, I will not have to think additionally about my security nor my family.
Deputy Minister Ranjan Ramanayake filed a complaint with the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption today.
Ranjan Ramanayake filed the complaint along with the copies of voice recordings that were aired through the media over the recent past on the avant-garde issue.
This is the voice recording of Nisanka Senadipati attempting to provide Minister of Health Dr. Rajitha Senaratne a bribe of 5 million rupees. The Commission said they cannot accept them without a complaint. So I am here with a complaint. I spoke to Dr. Rajitha Senaratne over the phone prior to arriving here. He said he was overseas. This is not done to attack anyone. This is a bribe that was attempted to be given in broad daylight. Dr. Rajitha mentioned about this in Parliament and at the group meeting.
You're watching Primetime News live on News First. Up next is Action TV.
Speaking at an event held last Friday, the Minister of Education revealed that the free school uniform program had been hijacked by a mafia and as a result, students had only benefited from 1.3 billion of the 2.3 billion rupees allocated for the scheme by the government. The minister's statement makes it evident that this revelation was made after studying the matter to a certain extent. At the event held on the 13th of this month, the minister noted that since this mafia cannot be curtailed, a voucher scheme would be introduced this year to ensure that the 4.3 million school children in the country reap the full benefit of the 2.3 billion rupees allocated for the free uniform scheme.
We will fearlessly take these decisions. At times, fear prevents such decisions from being made. Since I, as the minister, have no ulterior motives, I will stop the system which makes certain businessmen very wealthy and ensure that this vast sum of money will go to the students directly. This will be sufficient for them to get everything they need.
Nevertheless, when you take into consideration the series of events that form the background for next year's free school uniform program, it paints a picture that is completely contradictory to the minister's statement. This is because just over 2 months after assuming duties, the minister planned to distribute the free school uniform material among students as usual. On the 23rd of March, the minister submitted a cabinet paper seeking approval to call for tenders for 12,852,188 meters of cloth. This leads us to believe that either the minister was unaware of the scheme being hijacked by a mafia at the time, or he believed that the mafia could be controlled. The minister seeks through this cabinet paper to call for competitive tenders. This was intended to ensure that access to present tenders is extended not only to local manufacturers but also to local suppliers. Cabinet granted approval for this cabinet paper on the 1st of April. Tomorrow on Action TV, we take a look at the minister's attempt to seek cabinet approval to disregard national procurement guidelines and the instructions of the Treasury with regard to the free school uniform scheme.
After 10 days of interviewing families of missing persons and local authorities, the United Nations Working Group on Enforced and Involuntary Disappearances publicly revealed its findings to a packed news conference earlier today.
The working group is positively encouraged by the recent actions taken by this government. Enforced disappearances have been used in a massive and systematic way in Sri Lanka for decades. Even more worrisome is the fact that we've been also informed that families who have met with us have been harassed because of their meeting with us, which is, of course, totally unacceptable in a democratic society. The Prevention of Terrorism Act should be repealed because it contains, in particular, several provisions that can create enforced disappearances or can create a climate in which enforced disappearances may occur.
When we met with the President yesterday, we told him that we summarized our findings with 4 words: anguish, mistrust, fear, and hope. We had the opportunity to visit several different mass grave sites, and we are concerned with the technical capacity to conduct proper exhumations or DNA tests.
Regretfully, the working group received information in relation to the practice of authority to impose death certificates in exchange for compensation. The working group is concerned that in many instances the death certificate were sent to the family members without their express request or information.
Questions were also raised on the Trincomalee Naval Camp.
Regarding the Trincomalee Detention Center, we know that there had been people there at least until 2010, because there were indications that people had been there at that time.
If I could just mention that there were more than 12 cells in total that we have seen. Not in one complex, but we have seen 3 different complexes, and at least 12 rooms we have identified. And we don't know how long back has it started to be used, and we do not know the exact date until when it had been used.
Welcome back. Now, a herd of elephants on a rampage in the 26th settlement in Ampara have stormed and destroyed cultivations of farmers.
Now, at times like this, the wildlife officers would be called in to chase elephants back into the wild.
However, today, locals took matters into their own hands to chase these dangerous beasts back to the wild.
This herd of wild elephants take a daily stroll across these paddy fields. Newsfirst on several occasions reported on the issues faced by the locals because of the stroll by the entire herd of elephants. These elephants step into the paddy fields from the 26th settlement in the Uhana Divisional Secretariat area and travel across the fields for 10 kilometers. They exit from the paddy fields located in the Samanturai Divisional Secretariat area. According to the locals, the removal of the electric fence by the Department of Irrigation to raise the banks of the Walatapitiya tank had resulted in this situation.
The elephants had crossed the fields on 7 or 8 occasions. We have to sow the seeds again. We have no money. We should either refrain from farming and give these fields to the elephants.
When the wild elephants reached the government seed farm after crossing the paddy fields, wildlife officers took measures to chase them back the way they came. However, the locals opposed the move as the way back was through the paddy fields. Our correspondent said that following the tense situation, the wildlife officers stopped the operation and left the location. A group of youth from the area then took matters into their own hands to chase the elephants away, casting aside concerns for their own safety. The herd of wild elephants that travelled on the border of the fields attempted to enter the Walatapitiya tank. However, the electric fence was in their way. The elephants made several valiant attempts to cross, and finally did so after confirming that the fence was inactive.
The department remains idle until all the paddy fields are destroyed. We have no one to tell this to. The department says to form groups of 10 to protect the fields. How can we do that in the absence of an electric fence?
The 2016 budget will be presented to Parliament on Friday the 20th. Minister Sarath Amanugama hinted at relief that will be provided through the budget.
The President is very interested in continuing the relief measures that were provided to the people. I will not go into detail in describing this since the budget proposal will be presented soon, but relief will be granted to 10 essential goods in order to secure the standard of living of the people. Do not question me more than that. You will learn all about it on the 20th. I just wanted to explain the situation to you. Through this budget, a relief package will be made available to protect the lifestyle and consumption pattern of the people, especially that of the poor.
The government's proposal to amalgamate both the EPF and the ETF to create a new national pension fund continues to court controversy and debate among political, trade union and civil society circles. The various stakeholders expressed differing viewpoints on the matter today as well.
The government expects that the pooled resources of the EPF and the ETF will establish a new 1.7 trillion rupee national pension fund. Trade unions are warning of the risks involved in this policy decision.
It looks like a good decision, but this entails a huge number of problems. Is it fair to bring up such a proposal with such haste? Now this fund amounts to 1.7 trillion rupees, so we are letting the government know that the trade unions do not agree with taking money from the central bank because in doing so, the money becomes unsafe. We can't let this happen. If any social security scheme is being proposed, it should be implemented with the consensus of the unions. I told the Prime Minister that we need explanations about the ETF and EPF, so they reserved a time for us on Monday morning. All the trade unions were present on that day. The Prime Minister assured that none of the decisions with regard to this issue will be taken without considering the opinions of these trade unions. So we expect to come to a conclusion after a productive discussion. No one needs to worry about this because it comes with a state guarantee. No matter how much you write about it, the government will never become bankrupt.
Here's a look at more local news in brief.
Politburo member of the Frontline Socialist Party Kumar Gunaratnam was further remanded until the 27th of November. The order was issued when he was produced before the Kegol Magistrates Court. 11 suspects with alleged links to the LTTE were further remanded by the Colombo Magistrates Court today, as the Attorney General had not provided advice to proceed with the case. Thereby, the suspects were remanded until the 2nd of December. Unemployed graduates engaged in a protest march in Fort Colombo today demanding jobs. Barricades were set up at Lotus Road to prevent the march from proceeding. An official from the Presidential Secretariat met with the group and the police intervened to take their representatives to the Prime Minister's office. Students surrounded the administration building of the Kalani University today and staged demonstrations citing 21 demands, including a stop to improper constructions and increasing the student intake. Our correspondent said that the protest lasted for around 2 hours.
On that sober note, we wrap up today's primetime news on MTV. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
And I'm Shahan Jurampati. Good night and take care.